I have something to tell you. Something my father told me, and his father told him back along our bloodlines to Simos. In the time before time, we were the slaves, and the humans were the masters.
Impossible.
Welcome back to another episode of Front Row Cinema, a movie podcast for movie lovers by movie lovers. I am your host, TJ Trimboli, and with me today, taking time out of his busy human rebellion against the ape menace, we have astronaut Mr. James O'Reilly.
How's it going, buddy?
It's going. And each week we run down a movie from my 1,000 movies in theaters and we see how well it's aged, along with the hype surrounding the film, its box office analysis, and legacy in the film industry. So if you enjoy this kind of content, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, leave that 5-star review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's how you help the channel grow. And Jim, we got a whopper tonight. What are we watching?
So do you think Helena Bonham Carter invented furries? Or inspired, I guess is maybe a better word.
It's funny you say that because I was reading a thing when Tim Burton got this movie. This was the movie that him and Helena Bonham Carter met on and started dating.
Yeah.
And he told her, "Don't take this the wrong way, but you were the first person I thought of for looking good as a chimpanzee." And it's like
Oh my gosh.
that's a
There's
power move right there.
there's a lot of wrong ways to take that.
It's also like what a way to shoot your shot, and it worked. So man, that's
Yeah, that's
she
true.
might she entirely could have, and Tim Burton might be the person who fetishized it out into the world.
Yeah. So of course we're watching 2001's Planet of the Apes.
That's right, the 2001 sci-fi classic. Heavy quotations on the word classic there. Planet of the
I don't
Apes.
know that we need them.
Well, we'll see about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Directed by Tim Burton and starring Mark Wahlberg, Helena Bonham Carter, and Tim Roth. As always, before I turn to the back of my lovely DVD cover here, Jim, I think you can surmise this much quicker than the DVD can. What is the Planet of the Apes about?
The Scorpion King is a movie based on the character of the Scorpion King.
Week after week, that joke
It's
never gets old. It's
it's
always set
about a
up.
planet that's controlled by apes. That's what it's about. That's it. These
Pretty
early 2000s titles are so on the nose.
they give it all right there in the title. They know exactly what they're doing. But we turn to the back of our DVD cover here for a little bit deeper synopsis than The Rock can give us. In the year 2029, hey, that's not too far from now.
Yeah, we're getting there, buddy.
We're getting close, baby. Mark, we better start getting Mark prepped for astronaut work. In the year
Yeah.
2029, an American astronaut crash lands on a strange planet where talking apes rule over the human race. Now he must evade the advancing gorilla army to reach a sacred temple that may hold the shocking secrets of mankind's past and the last hope for its salvation.
All right, they played it pretty straight this week. Nothing too out there, right?
Yeah, no silly puns or fanciful dialogue in the logline right there, straight and to the point, which I feel like for any movie that would take a shot at doing some fancy puns, this movie would be the one, and they didn't do it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
must not have
Well,
gotten our funny side up guy. He must not have written this one.
yeah, yeah. He,
He
he
had the
took a
week off.
sabbatical on this one, yeah.
Yeah, maybe he was on
They,
vacation because he
but
would have hit home runs with this one.
yeah, no, he would have been great. I mean, I think the problem is that a lot of the camp and silliness in the movie isn't intentional. So why would they carry it over to the DVD jacket?
That's true. I don't think anybody who had any part of making this movie did so with the intention that this was all tongue in cheek. They were definitely way more serious than I think they needed to be.
I don't know. We'll talk about it. It's maybe
Well,
they needed to be just a little bit more.
maybe. Maybe. But all right, Jim, let's drop into our memories. Did you see this one in theaters?
Yeah, I saw this with my dad. I saw this in theaters with my dad because he was a big fan of more than one of the original Planet of the Apes movies. I
Okay.
watched probably like up to like the third or fourth one of those with him on video and stuff. So when this came out, we were definitely down to go see it.
Gotcha. So you had seen some of the other Planet of the Apes movies before this one.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, multiple times.
This was the first Planet of the Apes movie I had ever seen. So this was my litmus test for Planet of the Apes was this movie.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Big Rob took us. I think he was a fan of the originals too, but for whatever reason, he never showed me them. So I actually didn't see any of the Planet of the Apes movies until like maybe 2 years ago. So
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah. So I had seen this one as a kid, and then I had seen the new trilogy when they were in theaters, and I hadn't watched any of the original ones until just recently. And spoiler alert, most of them, three out of the five of them are pretty freaking good. I mean, obviously the first one's an absolute classic, but
Yeah.
there's some other ones
What
in there
did
that are
I'm
very
guessing
silly and great.
I'm guessing you saw Beneath the Planet of the Apes, right? I believe that's the second one.
Yes, I've since rectified, and I have now seen every Planet of the Apes movie.
Okay.
And that original just slew of them got progressively more and more wild. It's
Beneath
insane.
the Planet of the Apes is one of the craziest movies I've ever seen.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, you remember how it ends, right? They
yeah. They
eventually
set off with
get
the nuke.
underground. Yeah,
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 and
yeah.
that,
No, they
yeah,
right. So they get underground, and when they get there, there's this ancient race of humans that have psychic abilities and giant heads,
yeah,
and they have like a nuclear bomb that they're like overseeing, and Charlton Heston sets it off. Yeah, but
it's insane.
those characters are so crazy looking, and it's just such a wacky ending to a movie. I really love Beneath the Planet of the
Yeah,
Apes.
and it's insane that everything you just said in that movie still doesn't feel as insane as this movie does.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a toss up. I'm not I think Beneath the Planet of the Apes might still be a little more out there.
Well, however, they made that one work, whereas I don't know if we're gonna say the same for
Yeah.
this movie. As once we
Yeah, you're
dive
gonna have to try and convince me, I suppose.
as we dive into the weeds here on this one. Another thing that I was a memory of from this movie, not just seeing this movie. I don't remember if I enjoyed it as a kid or not. Probably not much since this is the first time I've watched this movie since I saw it in theaters. So I think we could go on a limb here and
uh
say I'm not the biggest fan of it, but I do remember playing the movie video game tie-in as a kid, the Game Boy Advanced game.
oh my
Of
god, it was on Game Boy
yeah,
Advanced.
yeah, to really bring you back to the heyday. It was on Game Boy Advance, and it was an absurd, just side scroller apes game where you were just trying to survive the planet
Yeah,
of the apes.
that's what every game on Game Boy Advanced
Yeah,
was. It was just
yeah,
like a side-scrolling
a
game,
silly side
totally.
scroller. And it was so insanely hilarious. But I remember playing that video game a lot as a kid. And it's funny that I
Huh.
remember that more than I remember the movie.
I don't think I ever had that one. And yeah, I guess you're saying you didn't really like it the first time you saw it.
No, well, I mean, I can't remember much. Like when I watched this time, the only thing I really remembered about it was that they were insane enough to cast Michael Clark Duncan and then be like, "You're gonna play a silverback gorilla," and I was like, "That's who pitched? That's insane. Who pitched? Look,
It's a choice. It's a
that's
choice.
that's bold, bold."
Yeah.
So that was the only thing I really remembered when I went to watch this movie. So I'm assuming I was not a fan because if I was as a kid, I probably would have been watching this more consistently.
Yeah,
So I'm assuming at this point that I was not a fan of this movie as a kid, and
fair
rewatching it
enough.
now, only reinforces that point.
Yeah. I really hated it when I saw it as a kid. And I remember thinking the ending was so stupid. I was angry at how stupid it was.
But I would imagine too, having you grew up with the originals also, thanks to your dad, that this probably I could see hating this a lot more, having grown up with the other ones.
Yeah, and I mean, hate's a strong word, but I was like very disappointed, I suppose, is how I would put it, because I was hyped up for it and I went and saw it and it was not very good. So I was pretty disappointed, yeah.
Yeah, I think disappointment is the key word that we will use and continue to use throughout the discussion for this movie. But before we really get into the absolute heinous atrocity that this movie commits it sometimes. Jim, you got to give me what I always love week after week, and that is hit me with some juicy box office numbers.
Numbers, dates, and numbers, numbers, dates, hooray. Dates, numbers. Show me the money.
Planet of the Apes opens July 27th through the 29th of 2001. That's its first weekend coming in the end of July. We talked about this last episode because this is what dethrones Jurassic Park as number one. So Jurassic Park had 22.5 million this week. Planet of the Apes dwarfed that with 68.5 million to come in at number one.
68 million. Jesus Christ. That's good enough.
Yeah, that's one of the better weekends, right? Where does that put it?
One of the better weekends. Jim, that's at this point in time that we're talking about here, 68 million opening weekend is good enough to be the second highest grossing opening weekend of all time, sitting only behind the Lost World Jurassic Park's 72.1.
Yeah, I thought 68.5 was really high based upon what we did so far. Yeah, so I mean that's gotta be a success, right?
Well,
I mean,
at least
for
in
this
opening,
weekend,
yeah,
they're starting out hot.
in
You know, I'm
opening
not saying
weekend
where we're
terms,
headed, but
yeah, in opening weekend terms, that is phenomenal. And everybody behind this movie was probably like, hell yeah, baby, we got a hit on our hands.
yeah. And then because we're so close to Jurassic Park 3, we talked about a couple of these other ones, like America's Sweetheart's still coming in third. Legally Blonde's down here in fourth with 9 million. It's in its third week.
Mhm.
I think we brought up The Score last week.
Oh, yes, we did.
And Dr. Dolittle 2's in here somewhere, still in the top 10, which we talked about in
Yeah.
another episode. The only other thing of note in this opening weekend that I have here, one movie shares this opening weekend. It opened on 2 screens. Wet Hot American Summer.
Wow. What are you talking about? A
Yeah,
cult classic right there. It only opened
right?
on 2 screens.
Yeah, it opened on 2 screens. And just because we're talking about it, we'll talk about this one a little bit. It stays on 2 screens the following week, and then it's out of theaters. And that's it.
Damn. That's
It
crazy.
does have a 2.8%. It makes 2.8% more in the second week on those 2 screens though. So hey.
Hey, good word of mouth on those 2 screens.
Yeah, and then I think it comes out again for another weekend, but like way later on. I'm not sure if it was like later that same year, but yeah, so it shares an opening weekend with Wet Hot American Summer is really what I was getting at here. Moving on to week 2, Planet of the Apes does not go on a run at number 1 here. It drops to number
Ooh.
2.
1 and 1.
Coming
What's it?
in with,
I'm very interested to see what its week to week drop is.
yeah, so okay. It drops 59.8%,
That's honestly
which
not as bad as
is
I thought.
yeah,
That's not
that's
bad.
not terrible. It's not
That's
terrible. It's not
that's like an
good
average.
either.
It's
Yeah,
not
right.
good, but you see a lot of movies drop in that range these days.
Yeah. And it comes in second. It's sandwiched in between 2 movies that are opening this weekend. In third, Princess Diaries to 22.8.
Okay.
Planet of the Apes then in second with 27.5 million. And
Yeah.
then opening number 1 this week, Rush Hour 2 to
Ooh.
67.4.
Dude, man.
Yeah. Dude, Rush Hour 2. Rush Hour was like a big franchise back in the day, man. This was a
Yeah,
really anticipated movie, the sequel to Rush Hour.
it's crazy. Good for Rush
And
Hour too.
it blows Planet of the Apes out of the water. Like Planet of the Apes like runs into a real buzzsaw there, which I think is gonna hurt it going through the rest of these weeks. All right, yeah, now it's gonna start to really dive here. So week 3, Planet of the Apes comes in 5th, 13.3 million.
Oh, that's not good.
Rush Hour 2 and Princess Diaries both stay in the top 5. Opening number 1 that week, American Pie 2 with 45.1 million.
Damn.
Yeah, we're getting into like the end of summer, and it's a lot of comedies. Is
A lot
what
of
I'm
comedies
noticing.
coming out. That's what used to happen is August used to be like the land of the R-rated comedy. And you don't really see that anymore.
Yeah, Planet of the Apes, yeah, is 5th with 13.3. So then we go on to week
Those soul-crushed studio execs as each
Yeah,
week is rolled by.
right.
We went
We
from
go on to
having the
week
second
4.
highest grossing movie of all time for opening weekend, and now we're just barely clinging by week 3.
Yeah. All right. So we go on to week 4. Planet of the Apes has dropped to 7th, so it's fallen like a rock here. It's losing to. I've never even heard of this
Torpedo it.
movie. Maybe I have. Captain Corelli's Mandolin? What the heck
Oh,
is that?
dude, that's the Nicolas Cage World War II movie where he's like from Greece. You never
Oh,
seen this
I don't know
movie?
if I've seen this. No, I don't think I've
Oh,
ever seen it.
dude, do yourself a favor, rectify that. Christian Bale's also in it, doing the most hilarious Greek accent you've ever heard in your life. The movie's insane. You'll watch that movie.
Right. Okay. So that beats it this week. By the way, Planet of the Apes has 7.1 million. It's a 46.3% drop going into week 4. So it loses to Captain Corelli's Mandolin. It's still behind Princess Diaries, Rush Hour 2, American Pie 2. Another notable opening this week, number 3, Rat Race for 11.6
Oh,
million.
is that Ace?
It's nice. I'm winning. And then I think we can just start to get into it drops to 10 in week 5, 3.5 million. And then let's see, I think we're gonna be Planet of the Apes in week 6 comes in 11th with 2.9 million.
So 5 weeks in the top 10. It is joining the bottom of the barrel, boys. Although, I mean, 5 weeks. Some other notable movies that still only did 5 weeks. We got obviously your Rugrats and Pokemon also did 5. Scary Movie held in for 5. Last week's movie Jurassic Park 3, and then X-Men also only spent 5 weeks. So honestly, not as bad as I thought the dive off for that movie was going to be.
Yeah, but you can see it drops really fast.
It does. It drops
to the back end of the top 10.
What
And
makes
it's losing to a lot of movies that I think it even came out after. So like its run, it's kind of weak, man.
It is. I think what makes it worse is that it went from being such a high to tailing off so quickly. Like if it didn't open to 68 million, like if it didn't open to the second highest grossing opening weekend of all time, that drop off is not as insane. It would just be like, oh yeah, it was a mediocre movie that didn't do well. But it starts huge, and its critical reception was so bad that this movie just fell off of a cliff week over week.
Yeah.
That's
and
what
like
makes
so
it
that
so bad.
I'm like, it's interesting that we went through it week by week there, because this was originally a movie that when they made it, they were planning on making a trilogy. The idea was that there was going to be 3 of these movies. And if you look at these totals, they don't really seem that terrible at face value. And you can tell me where they land on the list and we'll see. But so domestic, it finishes with 180 million. International, it pulls in 182.2 million.
Okay.
For a worldwide total of 422, let's call it 0.3 million.
422?
Yeah, 422.3.
422. So that's good enough to put it in the number 9 spot, just behind Castaways. Just behind Castaways 429, and just ahead of Jurassic Park 3's 368. But that is crazy that you say 180 domestic when the movie opened to 68. Like that's
that multiplier is terrible.
Awful. Like that's insane.
It's like 2 and some change. And like, yeah, you're right. It's those totals. I mean, that worldwide total puts it in 9th behind, things like, I mean, it'd be, what is it like? What are the top like 2 or 3 in front of it, I suppose?
Ahead of Castaway?
No, ahead of Planet of the Apes.
From where Planet of the Apes lands on this list.
Yeah, like Planet of the Apes is in 9th. So like, what's like 8th, 7th?
So we said 8th already was Castaway. It was 429. Just ahead of that is The Mummy Returns with 435. And then you got Shrek with 484. But for a movie that opened to the second biggest opening weekend of all time, that's a terrible spot to end up, because you look at the number 1 opening weekend, Lost World. Lost World sits in the number 3 spot with 618. And that movie also has mixed critical reception, but that still managed to make some money. This one really shows how quickly that just drop off was. That even with
Yeah.
that huge opening weekend, it didn't do enough to beat that middling critical reception.
Yeah, and I mean, they gotta be looking at this, right? Saying we were planning on making 2 more of these. This movie totally bombed. Well, not totally bombed, but it got totally panned.
Yeah.
And we made some money here, you know, against a $100 million budget. They probably made a profit, right? But they're also thinking if we release the second one after how badly this got beaten up, like how much is that opening weekend gonna be then, you know?
Yeah, like we're only gonna trick them once with this one. Like there's no
Yeah,
coming back
right,
on the second one.
right.
Like you're not opening to
Fool me once,
68
shame on
million.
you, Planet of the Apes. Fool me
Yeah,
twice, shame on me. You know, I'm
yeah.
missing that second one.
You're not opening to 68 million on the next one after that.
Yeah, yeah.
It's funny that this movie landed just behind Castaway here for our list because it's another William Broyles Jr. movie. We talked about him in the Castaway episode. He wrote Castaway. I had the idea with Tom Hanks, and he's one of the credited writers on this movie.
Yeah.
Willie Boy.
Getting some work. I like it.
Getting some work. Good for you, Willie Boy, even if this movie is a questionable one.
No, but this has got to be one that just gets like put through the studio meat grinder, right? Because they have so much
Okay.
invested. There's like a big name director. They, you know, like they're
that is
trying to make a
true.
franchise out of it.
It does
So
have
I don't
three.
know. I think you can give the writer a bit of a free pass on these.
Oh no, I always give them the benefit of the doubt. It's hard to write a movie. Even if this was all him, it's hard to write a movie. 3 writers though on this movie. William
Yeah,
Broyles
there you go.
Jr., Lawrence Connor, and Mark Rosenthal. I've never heard of Lawrence Connor, but I've seen Mark Rosenthal's name show up on a few movies here and there. I couldn't name one off the top of my head right now.
Yeah.
But I've
I
seen
don't have his IMDb
yeah,
up, so
I've seen that names before. So we got 2 decently named writers there. And you know, this one just didn't go their way. It happens.
yeah. So I mean, you've kind of been hinting at this for a little bit here.
I'm
It
slowly
seems
building
like
it
you
up.
didn't like this movie. Like, so do you want to just get into it here?
Yeah, we could dive into it. So was it last week's? Yes, it was Jurassic Park 3 where you had the beautiful words of wisdom where you said, I wanted to like this movie. And
Yeah.
that is my sentiments here. I really wanted to like this movie. And they did everything possible to make sure that I didn't.
Yeah, they were like really working overtime to make sure they killed everybody's interest.
Yeah, because like so this was one of those movies. I watched this twice. The first time I had to watch this a second time to make sure that everything I just watched actually happened. Because I'm not gonna lie, I was really high when I watched this movie the first time, Jim.
Okay. Yeah,
And
okay.
it almost felt like a fever dream because every time something insane happened, I was like crying, laughing, and I'm like, this is a real movie. This is a real movie that I'm watching right now.
Yeah.
So I had
And
to watch it
dude,
again.
that silly stuff is really great.
Yeah, so I had to watch it again, not really high, to make sure that everything that I wrote and was like, this is insane, was actually insane and not just me in my head, like, this is
Yeah.
crazy.
Dude,
And
what about
it is crazy. This movie
Yeah.
is a fever dream, man. It's
what
nuts.
about when they're trying to escape from the senator's house and they go through, and I think it's like Paul Giamatti maybe is in like bed, and that girl comes in to join him, that woman comes in to join him, and she jumps on the bed and she's doing like the seductive walkover, and then she jumps on the bed and just starts like monkey yelling, like ah, ah,
Hooting and
like
hollering.
throwing her hands. Yeah.
And they're just going nuts. It's like, how did
Dude,
like
what was that?
Yeah,
That was
every
so
second-
crazy.
every second of this movie, all I was thinking about was being the person on the other side of the camera trying not to laugh as they're
Right.
filming this movie because
Right.
they play it so fucking seriously. And I'd never know if they're like, we have to play it seriously, so that's what makes them think it's funny, or if they just intentionally were
know,
like, this
dude.
is a super serious movie and we gotta
I think
treat it with the
it's-
respect.
Yeah, like I think it's serious, dude. I like we've talked a lot about the late 90s movie, like specifically these kinds of action movies, and that definitely bleeds over into early 2001 or
Yeah.
into the early 2000s, I should say. And like this movie is that's what it's trying to be. You know what I mean? Like trying to be like kind of like The Mask of Zorro, which like the movies have like comedic relief in them, and that's why Paul Giamatti's there, and that's why I mean really he's like the big one. And or the scene at the end when the monkey gives the thumbs up, which may be the best thumbs up in the history of cinema as far as I'm concerned.
Oh my
It was
God.
so perfectly timed. But like that's so like there's supposed to be funny stuff in it, but I don't think that like the society and cultural part of it is really meant to be that. You know what I mean? Like and then especially that part when she jumps on the bed, I didn't think they were playing that for laughs.
I'm like at a loss for words at how insane this movie is. The opening of this movie alone, like it really gets you right on board immediately. We're like, this is going to be insane. When it shows the monkey doing his space mission, and then it turns out that
Yes.
it's just like a module, and he's just being tested. And as
Yeah.
soon as the module disappears, and Mark Wahlberg just shows up, he just looks at the monkey, just deadpan, just goes, "You lose." I died. I was like, I literally wrote down, I
Yeah.
was like, the opening line in this movie is Mark Wahlberg telling a monkey he lost. I
Yeah.
was like, get
He's
the
giving the monkey
fuck
the
yeah. He's
business,
giving the
dude.
monkey
He's
the
like
business. I'm like, this
yeah.
movie is pure lunacy.
But dude, think about how well that sets everything up, dude. Those monkeys got an axe to grind. Those apes got a fucking problem with these guys. Like, I'm totally buying into the fact that they're taking over that ship at some point. You know what I mean?
It's insane. And all of the just silly idioms that they throw in, like when Mark Wahlberg's watching, he's like, never send a monkey to do a man's job. It's like,
Yeah,
oh my God.
yeah, yeah. And dude, the like electromagnetic interference or whatever it is, I don't know what they called it. But whatever it was that they fly into looked so cheesy too, right?
Oh, yeah, the special effects at times were
Yeah, which
very, very
that's
questionable.
that's kind of a big thing I didn't like. And I don't know, like so this movie, man, I'm with you in the sense that I really want to like it. And I'm watching it and it's like it's almost there. Like I'm watching it and all I'm thinking is this movie's talking to me and saying,
Wanna get you close, my friend, but not too close, eh?
like there's a good movie in there somewhere, you know? And I don't know, maybe that's obvious because it's based on it's like a remake of a really good sci-fi movie, you know? And
Yeah.
maybe that's just what I'm nostalgic for. But yeah, like that's even with all that silliness and stuff that you're talking about, like there's like something good like oh all right, first of all, the makeup is incredible.
Yeah, Rick Baker, the like prosthetics guy who always does. He's done a whole bunch of movies. This
Right,
movie,
he's gonna be featured later on, by the way. We're gonna do Rick Baker in the deep
oh,
dive.
nice, nice. Yeah, his work here is above and beyond what the rest of this movie is because all of their makeup looks fantastic. And it always cracks me up when they do like the kind of application to this because they're like, all right, so we got Helena Bonham Carter. We're gonna make her a chimpanzee, but she's got to be hot. You still gotta want to fuck her, man. Like we got to make her look cute. And they
Yeah,
give her like
yeah.
the soft like monkey features to her because it's like you got like we got to buy that Mark Wahlberg's gonna kiss her at the end, which is the other insane thing. Like when he kissed
Wild.
and I died.
Wild.
I was like, oh my God.
It's
He kissed a monkey. He kissed a
yeah.
monkey and they want us to be
Listen,
hot
it's
for
an
it.
ape, okay?
Yeah.
Monkeys are lower on the
Oh yeah.
evolutionary ladder, right
The,
above humans.
the butler monkey. Like, we are
Yeah,
not monkeys.
yeah.
That guy is I didn't realize who that guy is too. And I'm watching it the whole time. I'm like, this guy is so familiar to me. And he's been in a bunch of shit. I can't remember. I fucking had his name and now I don't have it anymore because I'm terrible at writing things down and remembering them. And of course, he's not on the back of the sheet, but he's a very popular Japanese actor.
Okay.
And he's well and above one of the better people in this movie too.
Yeah,
He
and I mean it's like of course it's hard to recognize them because they all like get lost in those costumes and that makeup, dude. It's really lifelike and really good.
They do.
Especially Paul Giamatti. I mean, Paul Giamatti and Tim Roth are like very recognizable people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you
Like I
can
could pick them out of a lineup and I know their name, and I couldn't have even told you that that's who they were if the movie didn't have credits. You know what I mean?
well you can kind of pick up on Paul Giamatti because his voice is very distinct and and it feels like a very Paul Giamatti performance behind that. I
Yeah.
don't think anyone would have ever picked Tim Roth out of a lineup in this movie. The choices this guy made in this
Yeah.
movie, he's the most
And
insane person in this movie.
he's
I
great too.
he's so insane. And I wonder if like Tim Burton was just like afraid of him and was just like, let him do whatever the fuck he wants. Because he
Yeah.
does some of the most insane shit for zero reason in this movie. When
Yeah,
he
yeah.
tries to put the moves on Helena Bonham Carter and she wants no part of it, and he just huffs at her and then dives out the window onto his like horse and
Yeah.
rides off. I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, this
Dude,
guy is
by the way,
even later when
what's up with all the jumping in this movie?
I was literally just
They
about to
jump so high.
that's my other one. When Michael Clark Duncan gives him like the bad news and he just runs around, he starts jumping on the walls, like destroying shit, and everyone's just watching. And then he does like a backflip off like a wall and then just touches Michael Clark Duncan. He's like, forgive me, my friend. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at the situation. It's like, what the fuck is happening?
But yeah, so Tim Roth is great, and Paul Giamatti is great, and Helena Bonham Carter is great. The problem is they're not really getting a lot to do. You know what I mean? And the plot of this movie is kind of a mixed bag for me because on the one hand, again, like I think there's a movie in there, that really basic level where it's like Mark Wahlberg is a stranger in a strange land and he gets enslaved by these ape overlords, which he doesn't even understand how to wrap his head around that. And, you know, he's trying to escape and make it back to his ship. All of that sounds like a movie to me. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But the actual like movie that we're watching that's showing us that gets dragged down by I don't know, I think it looks kind of cheap for most of it. Like I always feel like I'm watching a movie. I never really get sucked into it. The sets all look like movie sets. They don't look like real places. Like especially that one city where it's just like a weird like U and there's like huts and walkways and it's all very like obviously built so that you can see it all from one direction, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think one of the detriments to the movie, and I don't mean this against Tim Burton because I think Tim Burton is a great director, is
Yeah.
I don't know if he was the right person to do this because his gothic kind of framework and sensibility, I don't think plays well to this type of movie because every time we see a wide shot and he's like framing the city, like it looks drab and like colorless, like he likes to have his movies. And one of the
Yeah.
beautiful things of the original is how vibrant and colorful that world looked because he's in like a
Right.
desert area, then he's kind of in like this jungle area.
Right. It's
And the
that
thing,
bright yellow
yeah,
and against the
the
contrast of
bright
that like
green.
beautiful blue sky and the
Yeah,
white huts. Yeah, like
yeah.
totally.
Whereas when we first meet Mark Wahlberg in this jungle when he gets there, it looks like Dagobah. It's just it's shot like mist and like dark, like colorless greens, like faded. It's like what is this? It
Yeah,
just
and like
doesn't
at
seem like a world
somehow
these monkeys would inhabit.
yeah, and somehow at the same time it still feels like the least Tim Burton looking Tim Burton movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like in this weird like in between space that just doesn't really work for me.
Yeah, it's in like a limbo where it feels like Tim Burton is being fed to the studio grinder and he's trying to keep like his sensibility and it's clashing and it doesn't work well against each other.
Yeah, and like that for me for this one, that's like the biggest difference between it and The Lost World because I think you could draw a lot of comparisons between those two where ultimately the script is pretty shallow and we're really just getting from point A to point B without much depth. The difference is in The Lost World when you get to point A and point B, it's really like well shot and interesting Steven Spielberg scenes. You know what I mean? And in this movie, when you get to point A and point B, it has a little bit of the X-Men syndrome where the big battles and the big action sequences feel like very dated, you know?
Oh yeah,
Like they
because there's
don't feel like very realistic at
yeah,
all.
there's no set pieces. Because we go back to talking about the Lost World again. The Lost World knew how to frame and shoot these exciting set pieces. What is the big set piece in Planet of the Apes? Is them drawing the monkeys in for that big explosion. But then after
Yeah,
that,
but
when you have the fight scene, it's just a bunch of monkeys just slapping each other. And then Mark
right,
Wahlberg
the
using
fight
a
scene's
gun,
so
just
lame.
like he's just headbutting gorillas with like a staff. And those are the whole when I was even with how shallow this movie is, when Michael Clark Duncan and the butler ape face off, I'm like, here we go, baby. Like big battle
Yeah.
moment between the two
Yeah.
of these guys. And then it's over in 5 seconds. And like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the
And
butler monkey's
again,
just dead.
it's just a lot of like
Dude,
half
it's just,
closed fists like
yeah,
thumping each other.
dude,
It's
they're
not
just,
really like
yeah,
choreographed, you know?
they're
Like
just slapping each other around. And then what's the other two big set pieces? Is them running through the city
right, when they cross the
escape.
river is a big one.
And then when they cross the river, but both of those are just so strict. It's literally just escape. They're both the same exact scene. Just
Right.
one's them running, one is them on horses. It's
Yeah, and so like that wouldn't be the end of the world if there was some more layers to it, like where you're using the scenery around you in a good way, you know what I mean, or like you're adding something unique or interesting to it.
yeah.
And if maybe again, and like this is probably just because it's 2001, but the fights are really so lame.
Oh,
They're so silly looking. What did you think of Mark Wahlberg in this one?
dude, I don't know. It's one of those things because it's like I don't hate Mark Wahlberg as an actor, but he's never really in movies like these. It really shows his weaknesses as an actor. Like I don't know if he's a really good leading man. Like all the movies that I've really liked him in, I think he's a good supporting guy. But when the focus is on him to really drive and be the like main presence, especially in these earlier movies, and I don't know if that's up to like him still learning the business or whatever, but
Yeah,
he's rough, especially in this movie. And I don't know if that's just like the script or this or what the movie or his performance, but there's just no agency in any words he says in this movie. It's just
I
like he's
mean,
just there.
yeah, I will say I think Mark Wahlberg gets better as time goes on. Not in this movie, but as
In his
his career
career.
goes on,
Yeah.
I think he gets better. I think an interesting piece of trivia I read about this one.
Okay.
He turned. Do you want to know what role he turned down
Is it
to
gonna make me
accept this movie?
is it gonna make me really mad?
I don't know about really mad. I think it probably actually worked out, but I'm just it's just an
Okay.
interesting one. He turned
What?
down the role of Linus in Ocean's 11.
Ooh, bad move on his
That
part.
which I think that's the character Matt Damon plays,
Matt,
right?
yeah, the one that Matt Damon plays. Which is
Right,
funny that the
right.
two of them always get mistaken for each other. And Matt Damon, they went to Matt Damon after Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I don't know. I think Mark Wahlberg would have been pretty good as Linus. I
Oh
think he
no, I
would
think
have.
so. Yeah, no, I think so. I think if you play to his strengths, he's great in movies.
Yeah,
But not you don't but people don't always play to his
yeah.
strengths.
He was.
He should have been an
I
astronaut
didn't
from
like him in
Boston.
this. Yeah, I didn't like
That
him
was
in
his
this.
problem.
He didn't have any like gravitas. You know, all
That's
of
what
his
I'm saying.
lines again. It felt like I was watching somebody read a movie line. You
That
know what I mean? He
that
didn't seem
whole
like a real character. You know?
yeah, the whole speech at the end that he's got to give to the apes to like get him ready for battle. It sounds exactly like when he was just talking about, I got to find my ship. Like he doesn't raise the cadence of his voice or like the whole
Right.
movie is monotone.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And you want him to deliver on that speech, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
you
gotta
got
be.
to.
It's
Especially if you're
yeah.
going into a battle scene, you got to deliver on that speech.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. The only other thing that I have here in my notes that I think we really need to get to.
I know what it's going to be because you've been hyping it up all week. You're really diving into it. And I think it's the first for us here to really dive into, and it's a genre unto itself that we love to watch, and that is
Yeah, I
the
think,
time travel movie.
yeah. So, time travel movies are kind of famously nonsensical. They like, they, because time travel isn't real, right? It's just like you can't do it. And like, there's so many like, impossibilities that arise from even thinking about it. So
Yeah.
I want to kind of like take a little pause every time we have a time travel movie and try and make heads or tails of what their rules for time travel are and how things cascade and affect things. And this is a pretty interesting one to start with because, I mean, the end of this movie is absurd. it's so it's
Yeah.
so funny when he
It's
goes back and there's Abraham Lincoln and it's just General Fade in the what should be the Lincoln Memorial.
yeah, it's pure insanity. And then he just gets
Yeah.
arrested by a bunch of monkeys in like DC PD cars.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, what do you like? What is your understanding of like? How do you think time travel works in this movie?
So, like we were talking about before, whatever that, wavelength thing that they come across, that pocket of energy,
Yeah.
you call it an electromagnetic field, I guess we'll go with
Yeah.
here.
Sure. Sure.
Really, how else do you really describe it? Um, is I'm guessing a wormhole. You threw your hand up
Yeah.
like you had
No.
something.
No. No. Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's what you were
Yeah.
gonna say?
Yeah. I think that's a wormhole, right? And I promise.
It's not sorcery, it's science.
It is. Wormholes
Right.
are science. They are not sorcery.
Yeah.
So
So it's a
basically,
wormhole, right?
yeah, it's a wormhole. So he goes through and he's deposited, however many years later that it is on this planet. But right as he's going through, another ship comes out, which we're supposed to then, after the end, assume that that's General Fade coming back out, who destroys that ship and sends it down onto the planet back in that time to let the monkeys evolve and grow and become older.
I think so. I mean, all right. So this segment is great,
Because it
dude.
can't
It's
be.
so nonsensical.
I know, because it can't be the test ape, because he comes down after Mark Wahlberg's already been there.
Yeah. So, dude, I've been thinking about this all week, and I think I understand how this wormhole works.
Okay, explain it to me like I'm an idiot, because I very well may be.
No, you're not an idiot, dude. I might be the idiot here because I've been trying to figure out how the time travel in Planet of the Apes works all week, you know? So it's connecting two different planets. So one of them is Earth, and then the other one is wherever they end up, right? And
Do
when
they
you
ever
go,
explain how far from Earth they are when they're on that ship? When
no,
they show up
I
to
don't.
that pocket? Yeah, I always assumed that you didn't know they were far from Earth, because when Mark Wahlberg watches that video, they talk about how he's been gone for 2 years already.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know because he gets back to Earth pretty fast at the end.
That's what I'm saying. When he
So I'm
comes
not
through, they're right
sure.
on Earth. So the time frame of where they're unless they were just like they've just been out in space for 2 years, but they're just like outside of Earth's atmosphere. But that's like what? I feel like that might have
Yeah,
been
I don't.
something you guys should bring up.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know. So I don't know if that's the point though. So like, the wormhole connects these two places, and let's just say one of them's Earth, they're by Earth, and the other one's
Okay.
this other planet, right?
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure the way it's supposed to be working is the further in the future you are at one of them, when you go through the wormhole, the further back into the past you go.
Okay.
So like that's why like the monkey goes through the wormhole first. Mark Wahlberg goes through maybe what like 10 15 minutes later, and
Yeah.
they get there like within a couple days of each other, but the monkey went through first and he gets there second. that's Dude, that's what happens in the movie. Like so
I
he
know
goes
it's
through
what
first.
happens in the movie.
So then like the ship goes through, however,
Yeah.
I don't know, say like it's like a couple hours after Mark Wahlberg, but like as you go a couple hours, you're going back even further into the
He's beat
past.
it.
So they
Yeah.
go back like generations of
Listen.
apes.
I get what you're saying. I don't know if that was their intention or if they even thought about it
Yeah,
as deeply as you're
but no,
thinking about it.
dude. So hold on though, it works both ways though, right?
Okay.
Because then Mark
All right.
Wahlberg goes back at the end, and Thade is still on the planet when Mark Wahlberg goes back.
Okay.
So, but what happens is Thade eventually finds some way to get up to that wormhole. Who knows how long it takes him? It takes him, say, like, I don't know, like a day. When he goes back so far into humanity's past with all this advanced technology and a gun, and he takes over and just like breeds the race of super apes.
I mean, it's more of an explanation than the movie
it
gives.
makes sense. It's just like it's there, dude. That's definitely what they were trying to do. They just like didn't explain it at all. Like it's just like so subtle that it doesn't even make sense when you watch it.
But how did they get off the planet?
I couldn't tell you.
Mark Wahlberg took the only ship.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing they like should have showed happen in the movie if they were gonna play that ending up. You know what I mean?
You really had to set up Thade getting off, because we leave Thade, he's locked in a room, and all the monkeys are like, "Don't worry, we're gonna take over shit from here." And then 2 seconds later, he's home, and they're like, "Here's Abraham Thade," and it's like what? It's.
Yeah,
I mean,
Abraham Lincoln, dude.
Your explanation is as much of an explanation as we're ever going to get on the mechanics of this. So it tracks.
It kind of tracks. Yeah,
it tracks.
It's just like I'm putting on my tinfoil hat here, and I'm getting way into the weeds on time travel.
I'll take it, because that at least makes sense.
It's just the problem is the movie didn't make it make sense.
No, the problem is the movie was just like, we don't it doesn't matter. We're just there for the ride. We're there.
Yeah.
But and I don't think they even thought it through, because I even read a thing with Tim Burton where they were talking about that the ending, they were just like, we just need a cliffhanger to make another one. So that's what we came up with. So I don't think they ever for 1 second thought like this is how time travel will work. They'll just be like, yeah, what if he goes back, but General Thade's already there, and he turned it into a monkey place, and we'll figure out the reasoning in the sequel.
Yeah, but that happened like way before Mark Wahlberg got there. Like Thade is dead by the time Mark Wahlberg returns. He's like enshrined,
Yeah, he's like the way Seamus was. He's dead now.
Exactly. Dude, I wish they made that sequel.
I
with
was
all
just
the apes in the cop uniforms.
I was just going to say that for as terrible as this movie is, I still would have watched that sequel.
Yeah, because now
that
they're like really civilized now, so they would treat him with more respect. Probably it'd be like there'd be a lot of nuance there.
That cliffhanger got me. I was like, dude, monkeys in cop outfits, like hell yeah! Like I watched that sequel.
I think it takes over the first Super Mario Brothers movie as like the biggest cliffhanger that never paid off. Like I really wanted to see what happened next. This time when I watched it, the first time I kind of hated it, but this time when I watched it, I really wanted to see.
As an adult now, really just wanting to see how much more insane this movie could have gotten. I do want to live in the alternate universe. I'd like to live in the alternate ape universe where this sequel got made, because I'm sure it would have been just as fucking crazy as this movie was.
I think it would have been a lot better. I think they would have like maybe even recast a little bit.
I don't know. All right, so then let me ask you this. They give you the keys. How do you make that movie work?
Oh geez, I don't know, man. Don't make me think about it, because then I'm not gonna want him to make it anymore.
It would be funny if they start the next movie and like he gets arrested at the end of this one. But when we start the next movie, it's all him getting arrested and getting free and everything already happened. We're catching up with him like a few years later. Let's say we already seen that he'll make out with a monkey. He's married to one now with a family. Like it opens with him in like suburbia, but his whole family is just apes.
Oh my god, that's so silly. It's so silly. I would like it if he was like a reality TV star. Like he's like famous, you know what I mean? Like they should make that movie now and be like, remember that really dramatic cliffhanger we were gonna make? Like, yeah, no, that none of that mattered. They actually just really love this guy, and now he's kind of like a middle-aged, like washed up celebrity.
He's kind of like Ted, where he's just like there. He's a local
Yeah,
celebrity,
right,
but he's
right.
been
Yeah,
around
it's
for
kind of
so
like Ted.
long.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's actually a lot like Ted. Okay, yeah, that's fair.
But I would watch that. You're just basically remaking Ed TV, but in the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, yeah. Get Ron Howard to direct it this time. He'll do great.
Dude, now we're talking. Now we're talking. That's a movie. That'd be so
Yeah,
cool.
no. I mean, I kind of just like want it to be the exact same movie as this first one,
Oh
but
my
just
God.
better and in this setting instead.
So,
That's
so
kind
it's
of what I want it to
basically
be.
now he has to break free from this Washington D.C. of
Yeah,
you
well,
make it a political thriller, but with apes.
right, right.
Like
It's
it's
like
3 days of the Condor or the
it's
Pelican
like
Brief, but
the
with
Pelican Brief. Yeah, it's like the Pelican Brief, only Mark Wahlberg like is literally the Pelican Brief. Like they don't want it to get out that there's a human that's like running around talking. Like he's the MacGuffin, you know? The movie ends with him like breaking into like a TV station so he can he can broadcast himself out to the world.
oh my God. Now we've got
Yeah,
something here.
yeah.
Now
There's
we've
like okay, that's
yeah.
how I would have done this Planet of the Apes movie.
Now we've got something. 2001 Hollywood, get him on the phone
Yeah,
because we got a bangerang
we
sequel
gotta
right
go
there.
back through the wormhole and
Yeah,
get back there and
we gotta
start
go
talking
back.
to people. Is what we gotta
Oh
do.
my God, that they're like, dude, you just built a time machine. Where you going? 2001. Oh, to stop 9/11? No, to make the sequel to Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I don't think there's really anything else to say other than that.
Yeah, no, I mean you wanna start looking at some IMDb's?
Yeah, let me hear it, Jim. I want to hear that glorious ping as we dive deep into that IMDb deep dive. All right, so are you kicking it off with our man Rick Baker, or are you doing Timmy first? Who you throwing
No,
at
we're
this?
we're we're gonna start with Rick Baker.
Oh yeah, Rick Studebaker.
So Rick Baker is a Hollywood fucking legend.
Oh,
He
yeah,
is
absolutely.
much the same way as
Bart the Bear.
Gary Marshall was in our Valentine's Day bonus episode. Rick Baker is an absolute legend. He just to start it off, he's the first ever Oscar winner for makeup.
Ooh.
He literally
Okay.
wins the first Oscar for makeup. He wins it for An American Werewolf in London.
Okay. Oh, dude, that movie is fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, I haven't seen that in a minute. I don't even know if I've ever seen the whole movie actually.
Watched it for the
But
first time pretty recently, and his makeup work in it is astounding. It holds up today. It looks better than any CGI I've seen of them turning someone into a werewolf.
yeah, I mean, like, what that says to me is that Rick Baker was so good at doing makeup. They're like, look, we got to make a category for this. Like, this guy's got to get an award. He's doing like such a bang up job.
Yeah, right. Now we just need them to make a stunt one for Tom Cruise.
Yeah, right. They should. They absolutely should. So yeah, he wins the first Oscar ever for American Werewolf in Paris. He wins Best Makeup Oscar for a couple of other movies here. 1985, he gets nominated for, this is a mouthful, Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes. So I think this is when he's starting to get delve into monkey work.
That's a movie.
Yeah, he wins the Oscar for Best Makeup. You ever see Harry and the Hendersons?
No, but I've heard of it. That movie.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
won for that.
He
God.
won the Oscar, the
That's
1988 Academy Award for Best Makeup for Harry and the
That's
Hendersons.
an Academy Award winning movie, Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah, dude, you don't even know the half of it yet. So 1989, he's nominated again for Coming to America.
What? Well, I guess because of all the makeup he puts Eddie Murphy in.
I guess, yeah. Oh, right, yes, because he plays a bunch of different characters.
Yeah, him and Arsenio Hall play like a bunch of the barbershop guys.
Right, and we're gonna see that make a comeback here in a minute. 1995, he wins
Nutty
Best
Professor?
Makeup for Ed Wood. Yeah, and then
Ed Wood.
1997, he wins the Academy Award for Best Makeup for The Nutty Professor.
And here I was thinking it was more like creature feature stuff, and it's like, nope, he's just putting makeup on Eddie Murphy.
No. 1998. This is a little more creature feature, probably. He
Okay.
wins best makeup for Men in Black.
Okay, yeah, that one tracks.
1999. He's nominated for effects and visual effects for Mighty Joe Young.
Dude, this guy loves working with monkeys.
Yes, dude. He's like the Monkey
All
King.
all of this was just prep work for Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. He also gets nominated for Life, best makeup. That's another Eddie Murphy movie.
Great
He's
Eddie
the
Murphy.
winner from How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh,
He did the
bam.
Grinch makeup. Yeah.
There we go.
He's nominated again in 2008 for Norbit.
Oh my
Oh, best
God.
achievement in makeup. I don't know if that's just that they changed the
That
name
might
of
be
the
like
award.
I think that might be like an honorary or no. No, it can't be because if they're giving it for a specific movie. Best achievement in makeup,
Yeah.
Norbit.
And
Fuck
then,
off.
and then 2011 he wins that same award, best achievement in makeup for The Wolfman.
Oh, okay. We've talked about that one.
Yeah, it's come up a couple of different times, I
It has.
think.
Wow. Okay, so it really comes full circle there. Starting with a werewolf, coming back around to a werewolf. I
Yeah,
will
so
say one of the crazier things is despite this movie's middling reception, I really thought this movie would have been a slam dunk for at least a nomination in its makeup.
yeah, I mean when like Norbit's winning awards,
That's
you
what I'm
gotta
saying.
think this would be in the running somewhere, you know?
Like he won for Nutty Professor, but you didn't even nominate
Right.
this movie.
Right.
Like, because the makeup looks stellar in this movie. Like
Yeah,
it works fantastic.
right.
I
Yeah,
still
he
would do
also
Helena Bonham Carter even as a monkey. So
he also does work on The Rocketeer. I'm
Okay.
just gonna scroll through really quick. He does. You ever see Baby's Day Out?
No.
He does work on Baby's Day Out. It's like this movie where a baby gets lost in Manhattan and it's just like crawling around Manhattan.
Dude, we would make
Baby's Day Out
anything.
is a great movie.
We would make anything back in the day.
Yeah, 1994, Baby's Day Out. Check it out,
Movies
everybody. Do yourself a favor.
movies today are so lame. There's no Baby's Day Out
Uh,
today.
he does work on Batman Forever, Escape from LA. We
Okay.
talked about Men in Black. He does some stuff on The Ring.
Okay. Yeah, so he's quite varied.
Yeah, he works. I mean, like, I'm not gonna say all of his credits because there's a lot, but he works up until 2015, and he's got like 85 makeup department credits plus all
Yeah.
those awards we just talked about.
Yeah.
And he does a bunch of special effects work. So yeah, he's like a legend.
He's a pillar.
Absolute legend.
Pillar in the makeup community.
Yeah. And then I'm not sure when our next Tim Burton movie is. Do we want to do Tim Burton?
Yeah, because I don't think the next Tim Burton movie is for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think
And
that's
I'm
what
sure-
Hollywood said too after this one.
And I'm sure there's another Mark Wahlberg movie around the corner for us.
Yeah, I'm sure there's one coming up at some
Yeah.
point.
But I think it's a minute before the next Tim Burton one. At least that I saw it in theaters. The only ones I could think of off the top of my head in the 2000s. But we'll go as you'll go through them. We'll say
Yeah, so we'll do
do
director
Tim.
credits.
Do Timmy boy.
Yeah. Tim Burton's director credits.
Big Tim.
A lot of these early ones I have never seen.
I don't
did-
think I think the first movie of his or like the earliest movie of his that he's done that I've seen is Batman.
I think the earliest I've seen you've seen Pee-wee's Big Adventure, right?
Nope.
You've never seen Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
No, I've just never had
Oh,
the chance
wow.
to, and never
right.
really was
I'm-
like searching it out.
You should watch it, dude. It's really funny. But all right. So I'm taking Pee-wee's Big Adventure over Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
I mean, some of these are going to be so silly, but I don't know when we're doing the next Tim Burton one. So like Beetlejuice or Planet of the Apes, right? It's like
Beetlejuice, obviously.
yeah, obviously. Batman or Planet of the Apes.
Batman.
Yeah. By the way, feel free to stop and talk about any of these that you want. Have you seen Edward Scissorhands?
I think Pee-wee's is the only movie of his that I haven't seen, at least of his like
Okay.
of his big credits. I've seen it. I haven't seen Edward Scissorhands in a long time. I remember
right.
not really digging it as a kid. His style outside of Batman and Beetlejuice, I was never like the biggest fan of Tim Burton.
I guess
I'd
what's
still
your
take
favorite Tim Burton movie?
I still would take Edward Scissorhands over Planet of the Apes. My favorite Tim
Yeah,
Burton movie, easy, Planet of the
yeah.
Apes. Uh,
Dude.
probably either Batman Returns or
Nice pick.
Sweeney Todd.
Okay, I don't know if I've ever seen Sweeney Todd,
Dude, I
but
love
that
Todd.
seems like it would be a solid pick.
Yeah, Sweeney Todd is awesome.
Yeah, I'm
I'd
taking
have to say
Batman
that
Returns as my favorite.
is your favorite. Yeah, I mean that
Yeah,
was a
Tim Burton movie for sure.
that was a classic. What other Tim Burton movies we got?
All right, this is actually a pretty good one. Planet of the Apes or Mars Attacks? That's a decent one,
Yeah,
right?
that
That's
is a
tough.
decent one. That is a tough one. I'll give the edge to Mars Attacks.
Yeah, I'm taking Mars Attacks by a lot. Planet of the Apes or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory?
I only watched that movie the one time. So that's probably the next Tim Burton movie that we have because we saw that in theaters.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so it's coming up pretty soon. I mean, 2005,
2005,
so not too soon.
not too soon, but soonish. That movie I don't remember liking when we saw it in theater. I've only saw it that one time when it was in theaters.
I like that
think-
movie, but I don't think
Do
I
you
liked it
really?
the first time. Yeah, I think I liked it. I watched it like pretty recently, like a couple of years ago, and
I
was a fan of
haven't.
it.
I only watched it that one time and I don't remember liking it. So at the moment, in this moment in time, it might change when we do Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But I'm giving it to Planet of the Apes.
Okay. Planet of the
That-
Apes or Dumbo? These are
Uh,
some better ones, right? Because
yeah, these are
Dumbo is
better
like
ones.
50-50 maybe.
No, I'll give it to Dumbo.
Yeah, I think it's Dumbo by like a pretty wide margin. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna say Big Fish, right? Like Big Fish has got to be way better than Planet
Oh
of the
yeah,
Apes.
absolutely. I didn't
Which
see that
that,
one in theaters.
I think he follows up Planet of the Apes with Big Fish.
With Big Fish. Yeah, that was like
Yeah,
2003.
he does. He directs a TV miniseries, which I've never heard of. The World of Stain Boy. Does that ring any
What
bells for you?
the
The
fuck?
World
No,
of Stain Boy.
it doesn't, but that
Let's-
sounds exactly like something Tim Burton would do.
Oh, it's like
What
an
is it?
animated thing. It looks
Oh.
animated. It's the IMDb thing is local superhero Stain Boy hunts down oddball villains harnessing bizarre powers. And like the poster is like a little drawn. It's like a weird like
What is he,
animation
just-
thing.
Does he clean stains or does he make them?
I don't know. You're gonna have to watch Stain Boy to find out. Let's look up. Let's read an episode synopsis here. Actually,
Let's not.
so you don't want to. Come on, it's like one sentence. So Stain Boy episode 2, Sergeant Dale instructs Stain Boy to look into a mutant called Toxic Boy, who creates clouds of toxin by belching. So yeah, it seems like Stain Boy goes around and cleans things up. That's the idea.
Cleaning up all this petty crime.
Yeah. So not counting Stain Boy, he follows up Planet of the Apes with Big Fish, which two very different movies in terms
Yes.
of quality.
Very different movies. I did not see Big Fish in theaters, so we won't be doing that one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think Charlie and the Chocolate Factory then will be the next one. So that's down the line. Yeah, very, very interesting career from our boy Timmy here.
Yeah, and I think that's all I got for IMDb 5. I'm sure I missed a couple for Tim Burton, but we'll see him again. So
He'll be back down the pipe somewhere. We'll see you later, Timmy boy. But all right, let's turn our attention to our favorite portion of these episodes, and that is the beautiful list. And we see where these movies land on this beautiful list. And we see if after Jim's big speech in Dr. Dolittle 2, where he was turning over a whole new leaf, and then the next episode he immediately backtracked. The question is how will he react tonight with Planet of the Apes, which I think is a movie that is very much in the same spirit of Jurassic Park 3. So it's going to be interesting to see how you vote on this one. So cue up my boy Ebert, my friend. It's time to get into those ratings.
I'm Roger Ebert. Been a scene from the best film of the decade. This is a great film.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, Ebert. We'll see. All right, Jim. Planet of the
So
Apes, final rating.
you brought up Dr. Dolittle 2, and there's a big difference between Dr. Dolittle 2 and this movie that we just watched, Planet of the Apes. And the big difference is I really enjoyed Dr. Dolittle 2. This one, I enjoyed it so little that I went into a tailspin and ranted for 15 minutes on this podcast about time travel. So like I don't know. I don't think that Dr. Dolittle is gonna follow through to this one. I don't know, we talked about it. I just think like Mark Wahlberg kind of drags it down. There's not really a lot of depth to this movie. And it, again, what I feel mostly while I'm watching it is that I'm watching a movie, which is never really how you want me to feel while I'm watching your movie. You want me to be like into it, you know? So I'm gonna give it a 1.5.
1.5 from Jimbo. We talked last week at the end of Jurassic Park 3, wondering if this was going to be a movie that was going to be our poorest rated movie, if it was going to end up doing worse than Jurassic Park 3 and The Perfect Storm. And we were close. You gave it a 1.5, but I think Planet of the Apes is going to end up joining its friends, Jurassic Park 3 and The Perfect Storm, because I'm going to give this movie 2 stars.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's all the things you just said.
Yeah.
And so much more.
It's so much more. Yeah.
But
And
I
mean,
almost have to respect this movie for how fucking insane it is. And at no point did anyone stop and go, maybe we should dial this back. Maybe we should stop Tim Roth from doing what he's doing.
yeah. No,
Maybe
Tim
we
Roth was the
shouldn't
best
have-
part. He's honestly a half a star on my scores, just Tim Roth.
Like at no point did they ever stop to question themselves. And I almost got to give it to them because this movie, when somebody would say to me, explain to me the prototypical 2000s movie, this is one that I could show them and be like, this is the 2000s right here. Like, you want a 2000s movie? This right here, just pure lunacy.
Yeah,
So
it's like
I gotta give, because it's not unwatchable. It's at times entertaining, and it's a fever dream at that point. So there was no point in this movie where I was bored and I was like, this is unwatchable. I was always like, this is the most insane thing I've ever watched. I can't.
I was bored for a lot of it.
I can't believe they did this. Like, this is insane. He kisses a monkey. This movie is crazy.
Yeah.
So I got to at least.
I don't know. It's
got to give it its credit there, in that it at least had me chuckling throughout the movie at the pure insanity of this movie. So I'm gonna give it 2. Disappointing, still an insanely disappointing movie.
Yeah, I mean, it is tied for last place right now behind Rugrats.
Yes, so it still goes to show that it still very much is a crap movie. But
so do we want to break the ties?
Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's sitting now at a 3.5. So that puts it in with its brothers, Jurassic Park 3 and The Perfect Storm. All right, so we broke the tie last week. So Jurassic Park 3 is at the top of the heap, and then the Perfect Storm. So we'll start first. Jim, what do you take? Planet of the Apes,
man.
The Perfect Storm.
Man, this is so much harder at the bottom of the list than it is at the top.
The battle of Mark Wahlberg's shitty movies.
Oh man,
The Perfect Storm or Planet of the Apes?
I'm gonna take The Perfect Storm because overall, like on the whole, I think The Perfect Storm looks better as a movie. And that's, I am watching it, so that's important. And with all the other bad things said, I'm gonna take The Perfect Storm on looks.
I had to think for a second, but I would agree with that. I would also take The Perfect Storm over the Planet of the Apes.
And then we have Jurassic Park 3 beating The Perfect Storm. Okay, I think that's a good order for those. Yeah,
I think that's fair. And I mean, it might not have gotten a lower score to be the worst rated movie, but it still is the worst rated movie as far as we're concerned here on this list. It is coming in dead last of the 3.5. So in my
Yeah.
book, that's the
It wasn't
new loser of the bunch.
it wasn't good, dude.
No, no, it was not. It was one of the most insane movies I've ever seen in my life. But God bless it for existing because it really brought me on a wild ride when I put myself through it. But all right, Jim, do you have an idea as to what our next movie is?
Um,
I can give you a hint if you'd like. I'm gonna try and make
yeah,
these
I
hints
don't know.
harder because
Make the
yeah, because
try and make them harder. Yeah.
week after week I tend to give you too easy of a setup. Um, and I had my hint, but I'm not going to give it to you anymore because if it would give it away, and we want to
Okay.
make these a little bit harder.
All right. Can you give me the year first? Can I get the year?
So we're still in the same year.
Okay.
We're still in the same year.
Okay.
It is an action comedy.
Oh wait, is it Rush Hour 2?
It is Rush Hour 2.
Yeah, wait, I remember from the box office. It came out the next week. That's right. Yeah.
And that
It's
was going to be
Rush
my
Hour 2.
hint. That was going to be my hint that I was like, we talked about it already in this episode, but then I was like, the only other movie we talked about really was Rush Hour 2 in the box office.
Yeah, I don't know.
Of
That would have
note.
been way harder, honestly,
Really?
than saying
If I just said
action
we talked.
comedy. Yeah.
That's true. That's I guess I got to figure out my ways to make these harder.
Oh, but that's
Yes,
exciting. Rush Hour 2 is my favorite Rush Hour movie.
is also my favorite Rush Hour movie. And this is another one. This is nice where we're getting to the points now where more often than not we're doing week over week. In the beginning of these, we had these huge month gaps in between going to the movies, and now it's really starting to truncate. We're really starting to go more consistently, so we're really getting to dive into those fun box office numbers, and also really dive into a big plethora of movies that have come out for any given
Yeah.
year.
Right. This
Uh,
is the third episode in a row that'll have come out like consecutively, right?
Yeah, because Jurassic Park 3 came out, and then the next week after that was Planet of the Apes, and then now the next week after that was Rush Hour 2. I think this is going to end up doing just how that string of episodes in 2000 did, where I saw like 3 movies one after the other in the summer, and then I don't see another movie until Thanksgiving.
Right. And then there's a huge gap.
Yeah, then there's a huge gap. But at least for now, we enjoy the summer ride where we're doing a bunch of these summer movies. So yeah, next week we get to enjoy the absolute classic of Rush Hour 2. My first hint that I wanted to give you was just the quote Ricky Tan, but then I was like, that's gonna give it away
Oh,
too.
yeah, that I would have gotten
Ricky
that in a
Tan.
second. Yeah.
Listen, man, your
Come
mom's on the
on now.
phone. I heard her back. I gotta come with me, man.
When he's like, I want all the triads on the left side.
Ugly women on
all
this
the-
side.
Yeah.
Lee, why don't you tell me this man rolls like this?
Oh man.
I could
That's gonna be a good one.
I could quote that entire movie, but we'll save all that quoting for next week. That's going to be a fun one to get into. And we're diving into one that obviously that it seems like you and me have watched pretty often. So this isn't a felon between the cracks.
I haven't seen it in a long time, but I've definitely seen it multiple times. Like
Yeah.
more than 3 for sure.
Yeah, I think my last time watching it was within the last year. I remember it was on Netflix and I had it on in the background while I was doing something, and that was, I want to say, only a couple of months ago. So I watch this movie fairly often because it's just an absolute great action comedy. So it's gonna be fun to dive into that one next week.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but that'll be for next week. Jim, as always, some words of wisdom to send the people home with.
Not so much words of wisdom. I've been thinking since I've been leaving this blank, I'm just gonna play my favorite audio clip from the week's movie that I didn't get to play during the episode.
That's pretty good. All right, what do you got? Let's hear it.
And so I'm gonna play the Michael Clark Duncan one that hopefully will make some comebacks in later episodes.
Bow your heads!
Just the absolute power behind that voice is so great. But yeah, that's what I got. I'll leave you with that.
That's a very good way to leave the people with. Bow your heads, people, to this bitchin' podcast that we have here. And as always, if you made it this deep, hit the subscribe, drop the 5-star comments. Help us out, baby. You're enjoying this. We're enjoying doing it. We want to keep doing it. Show us some love. And as always, we'll see you at the movies.